The Descent. Is it great? So The Descent is a bleak survival horror film centered around 6 women. That's right, it's an all-female horror film. Their journey into the dark is a terrifying trip. Neil Marshall uses his setting to perfectly create a feeling of claustrophobia and panic. It's truly contagious. The amount of character this movie manages to show throughout is nice, but what's more impressive is that it does it without hindering the believable feeling of the film. Despite this being a movie about monsters in a cave, it feels pretty genuine. Each of the different characters feels like an actual person without a clearly set personality. The Descent proves to be a surprisingly well-rounded horror film that uses its characters, setting, and monsters to terrifying effect. So let's dive in. Off the bat, we are introduced to this group of women rafting down a very turbulent river. Their cheers and smiles tell us that this is nothing unusual for the group, and we see a husband and daughter watching from the bank with concern on their faces. As the women set ashore, the father comes to greet the group, and we see his hidden affection for a woman other than his wife come through in a subtle gesture. This is one of the many scenes in the opening of the film that establishes incredible amounts of character and subtle actions. The horror of the film begins immediately after the unusual opening, when the wife Sarah watches her husband and daughter die brutally in front of her. This emotional trauma is handled brilliantly. It serves as a catalyst for the rest of the cast. We know everyone's concerned for her and see the impact this has on the group as they try to acknowledge and console her as best they know how. It helps us, the audience, grow an appreciation for each character as it puts them immediately into an emotionally charged situation. The entire group wants to console her during this trip that they've set up, but none of them really know how to show that. Some characters, like the doctor and the teacher, act with compassion and sensitivity, while others, like Holly and Juno, act with indifference or callousness. These slight interactions serve as clues to the characters' underlying personalities and interpersonal relationships. Some people never have the opportunity to express more of themselves, while others do, but it doesn't feel like anyone was brushed over. It's just that, in reality, not every person is going to have an emotional or personal reveal. I love the genuine feel this film captures, and it truly adds a layer of depth to the horror. When you feel like the people you're watching could really be people, their struggles carry so much more weight than the average horror film. As each of these characters has been shown to be a very capable individual, it is sickening to watch the immensity and unforgiving nature of the environment push the psyche of this group past the breaking point. They maintain a sense of calm as best they can, allowing us, the audience, to appreciate their endurance as they inevitably fail. It is far too common for a horror film to rely on breaking psyche of their cast to push the horror forward through reckless actions. This is really not the case here. All of the characters do their very best to stay alive. Their deaths are caused by circumstances that are impossible to overcome rather than their own stupidity, which is far too common. As these women descend into the darkness, the true horror of the film reveals itself. The horror exists in the cave and not in the monsters as you might expect. The looming endless darkness creates a chilling feeling of the unknown that Neil Marshall captures wonderfully. The long shots of the women struggling through small crevices, pushing deeper into the dark, causes more tension than any ghost scare ever will. This film clearly understands that a setting can be scarier than any creature possibly can be. If you watch this film in the dark, I swear you will find yourself aching for a bit of daylight before the end of the film.
Using the limited lighting of the cast to illuminate their journey into the darkness is an excellent choice, as it allows us to share their perspective.
The small amount of light they have can't possibly show us the end of this place. You feel like the light is just being swallowed up by the cave's stone walls. Combine that with the loss of direction and the natural obstacles of the cave, and you already have a hell of a horror film. But The Descent doesn't stop there. After things seem like they couldn't possibly get any worse for the group of survivors, bat-faced monsters start stalking them from the darkness. When I first heard about this concept, I really thought it was going to be too much. Having seen The Cave before this film, I really expected the creatures to overpower the wonderfully realistic setting that I had seen up until this point. However, I was happily surprised with how well integrated the creatures proved to be. They act as animals more than they act as actual monsters. They serve as a nice representation of what such an unforgiving place does to a creature. They certainly raise the stakes for the plot, and they absolutely drive the action forward, but they do that without changing the film, which is what I had worried about. The cast does not lose their resolute sense of survival, nor does the film break down into a pseudo-sci-fi flick where everyone's trying to learn about the creatures. These things are just another obstacle to be overcome by our cast. No time or thought is spared for why or how these creatures came to be, because it doesn't matter. Survival is all that mattered before they appeared, and their appearance does not change that fact. Of course, that's not to say the monsters have no impact on the cast. We see their psyche start to break as the situation becomes more than the rational mind can bear. Some panic, others emotionally shut down, and some become overwhelmed in other ways. In each case, we get a very real example of how someone might react to something completely beyond explanation. We see these people have reached a level of fear and instinct beyond reason. Their actions aren't explained or quantified for us directly, but you have a complete understanding based on the limited information and the underlying relationships we've seen formed up to this point in the film. Sarah's betrayal of Juno stands out as a moment that perfectly captures how this film shows us rather than tells us what the characters are thinking and feeling. Actions always speak louder than words, and this lesson is not forgotten here. We completely understand Sarah's conviction to betray Juno in the moment, even though Sarah doesn't explain her actions at all to the audience.
In the final shot of the film, where Sarah's psyche is snapped and she is now surrounded by monsters about to be killed,
there is no final scare or moment of safety to alleviate the tension that has been building for the entire movie. By ending it in such a moment, with her death never being shown, we are left with an empty feeling of dread, without relief. A perfect ending for this film. It truly causes the entire desperate struggle of the cast to resonate with you. It's just chilling.
So to wrap things up, The Descent is an excellently done horror film.
It has found a way to maintain real feeling characters in an unreal world. This film shows that horror doesn't always have to be as shallow and fleeting as the recent slew of remakes would have us think. There is a richness to the subtext of this film that is rarely found, especially in this genre. The use of a cave for the setting in horror is not an original idea, but I have yet to see another film that presents a cave in such an imposing and impressive fashion. As a horror fan, I am so happy that films like this are continuing to be made. Horror is a genre that is often presented cheaply and lazily. The Descent could have easily been another cheap horror movie about a group of gals getting slaughtered by monsters in the dark, but instead it goes the extra mile and presents something worthwhile. There isn't really much of a theme to this film. It is an uncompromising horror film with an emphasis on survival and desperation. That said, having an all-female cast, it must have been tempting to focus more on women power, but I think this film is a better example because it stays away from pushing those ideas. Of course, all of the women are strong and independent, but that doesn't ever become a center stage idea. The horror is the only thing that matters in The Descent, and every aspect of the film works together to give us the most horrific experience possible. For me, this movie is a solid 9 out of 10, but for the love of God, watch the director's cut. The new edited ending is god-awful. So that was The Descent. Wow. Pretty bleak movie. I'm
so necessary though. So necessary. You just can't lose that ending. I don't believe we're spoiling it. It is wonderfully morose. It is wonderfully desolate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I know I've mentioned this in my review already, but I just wanted to restate, make sure you get the original ending. There is a changed ending to accommodate, well, they changed the ending at one point, and make sure you find the original, because it is way better. It is so good.
I recommended this movie to close friends of mine, and they came back after watching it on Netflix. Yeah, no, the worst part was the ending. And I told them they were wrong, and I asked them to describe what they had seen. This was my first knowing of this change-up ending, and oh man, oh no, it's like you have to see it in the first place, and then you'll just know. You'll just know, you just need to be warned. Mm-hmm. Nick, do you have a question for our audience?
Have you guys seen any show that has this strong a female cast? Because that's my big question. The big thing that I take away from The Descent is that it's an entirely female cast, and it doesn't hang up on that at all. It's perfect. Do you know of other movies that have an entirely female cast and just pull it off? Just completely, seamlessly have all of these characters do there's no cliches in here.
And to add to that, a wonderful aside, Neil Marshall, the director of The Descent, also did Dog Soldiers prior. Dog Soldiers was an all-male cast. Mm-hmm. Well, one female, but it was about a group of boys, okay? And it was done intentionally, and when you do something intentionally, you might come off as if you're trying hard. And it was just girls out for a weekend. It didn't seem like there was no changing or anything that came off as for male eyes, if you will.
Well, not that these weren't strong female characters, but there wasn't really an undertone of girl power. They were strong and independent, but they were just regular people, and it was really nice to see that. And it's something I can't think of another movie, especially a horror movie, that has such strong female characters. Like 5.
Yep.
Like 5 strong female characters. Wow. Let me know if you know of another movie, though. I'd love to check it out. And always like, comment, and subscribe below. See you guys.
Thanks for watching.